Wow. Who could say they didn't see this coming? I didn't. Of course I did. I've said this quite a few times on this channel, is that if you're looking at this objectively, and that's what I try to do, I'm a diehard Sixer fan. I'm a diehard Jerome B guy. Tyrese Maxey, Isaiah Joe, all of our players, even Steph Curry and Danny Green. Do I think they should be in a specific role? Yeah, but I'm going to ride and die with them because the Sixers. But I'm objective. I love my team. I love the players on my team. But I am objective at the end of the day. And you have to be. In order to call yourself an analyst or even a scout or whatever the case is, you have to be objective to some degree in order to reasonably look at what you're looking at. And I think that's actually the big problem with the situation right now from a upstairs perspective. With Daryl Morey and Joshua Harris and David Blitzer, you're too close in. You got to be objective about this. From the standpoint of the Portland Trailblazers and the Washington Wizards, we are now at a point in the situation where Ben Simmons is basically insubordinate. He was suspended for conduct detrimental to the team. That's in the NBA CBA language, but if you really want me to be specific, he was insubordinate to Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers asked him to be in a defensive drill. He refused. Doc Rivers asked again. He refused again. So Doc was like, okay, go home. And that's where we are in the situation. Which I'm kind of surprised that it was a defensive drill and not an offensive drill. Because at least defensively, he was doing the whole thing where he was like standing like this. And that doesn't work. Or, to be honest, it doesn't work if you're not 6'10", 225. If I were in that defensive drill, I know what that drill is. You're supposed to have your arms out like this. Well, number one, to impede the ball handler. Number two, to impede passing lanes. But if you're not 6'10", 225, I couldn't just stand there like I'm some brick wall. God's gonna drive right past me. That's what would have happened if that were a real game. If that were a real game, it would have been like, thanks for the driving lane. So that was just lazy in of itself. So we already have video evidence of Ben Simmons being lazy. This was just an escalation of that. And we were all wondering how Ben was going to come in. And I literally, when it was announced that this dude's coming back, I was like, you better not tell Owens this. Because you could deal with T.O. because of the top wide receiver. You could deal, if Embiid were doing this, we'd be like, okay, I understand trying to get him back because it's Jerome B. Or it's Anthony Davis. Or it's James Harden. You're Ben fucking Simmons. You don't get to T.O. this shit. You're not that good. Despite Daryl Morey, Joshua Harris thinking you're that good, you're not that good. And that's what every other general manager is thinking about now. He's not worth this. You're paying him $33 million, close to $40 million towards the end of his deal. He's not worth this. He wouldn't even be all that worth it if he were just himself, or what we thought himself to be. You know, professional, doing the things, low key, may not be a franchise player, but at least reliable. Now he's dropped even that persona, and now you're seeing what he really is, what he really always has been ever since LSU. A big crybaby with an entitled, spoiled silver spoon in his mouth. So, again, think rationally, think neutrally. I'm Neil Oshley, I'm the Blazer general manager. Why would I trade a legacy player in Damian Lillard for Ben Simmons? From the Portland standpoint, why would I do that? Is Ben someone I could build around? Well, let's talk about that. Ben, you said you want your own team, right? That's what you said. You said you wanted your own team. You wanted to grow your game. This is how you're going to do it? This is how you're going to grow your game. By not listening to coaches and getting fun out of practice. That's a great way to advertise yourself to the Blazers or to really any of these teams. That's a great way to advertise yourself. That's how you're going to conduct yourself as a sole franchise player of a team. That's the way you're going to conduct yourself. Come on. Do you see why it's taken up to this long? Part of it was the Sixers' irrational demand. The other part of it is that, dude, I don't want to give all those assets for Ben Simmons. If the Sixers are waiting for the other teams in the marketplace to up their price, you're in for a disappointment. The way the Pacers looked at it, Malcolm Baldwin is a pretty good player who doesn't get himself kicked out of practice. So they're like, you know what? We need to find some other way to upgrade our roster, but we got a pretty good young point guard on the contract. Let's be up him for a couple more years. Can't get Malcolm Baldwin now. Great job, Dale. You look around the situation around the league. Jaden McDaniels for the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's a young, small forward prospect. If he plays up to his potential and what he could become, you're in Minnesota now, you think, do I really want to give up 6'8", southpaw, super athletic prospect for a guy who doesn't come to practice? I don't know. Maybe if it's Malik Beasley, McDaniels, and Patrick Beverly, yeah. But if you value what McDaniels has brought to your team, you have to really be sure that Ben elevates you. And here's the next problem. Ben Simmons is not the normal NBA player. Daryl Morey keeps thinking, oh, if I get this guy on the court, if I get this guy, doing what Ben does, that's going to show teams what they're missing. Ben Simmons is not Allen Iverson. He's not Baron Davis. He's not going to come on the floor and absolutely dominate a game or a series of games to make you think that this is the guy who transformed you. And that's actually another big holdup. The Sixers organization thinks this guy transformed them. No, the guy who transformed you is the guy, thankfully, still in your practice facility. Thankfully, still the key of your franchise, Joel Embiid. That's who transformed you. Ben Simmons was just along for the ride. A very expensive part of the ride. Both emotionally, physically, and financially, a very expensive part of the ride. But that's it. He is just a passenger on Joel Embiid's train. That's it. That's all Ben Simmons is. Truth be told, Dale, 275 games played. Before he even acted like a petulant child, there had been more than enough game data to say this is not a franchise player in this league. This isn't even a legitimate second option in this league. It may even be doubtful if he's a third option so long as he can't shoot. Because at the end of the day, in the playoffs, teams are going to shorten that half-court game. Not like you're great in transition either, by the way. You're among league leaders in turnovers in transition. So it's not like you're some great transition player. But even if you were, your game is so fundamentally limited that if I'm looking from, again, an objective perspective, I don't think Ben Simmons transforms my team. As a role player, complimentary guy, if I have a primary ball handler, maybe. But even then, you shift him over to power forward. What do I need from power forward that doesn't shoot? I need you to cross the boards. I need you to attack the rim. I need you to be an aggressive screen roll big man. I need you to play that DeAndre Jordan, that Karl Malone type of role. But Ben doesn't play hard all the time. Ben doesn't even show up to practice. Again, objectively speaking, no team, I repeat this, Daryl Morey, no team is going to trade an All-NBA player for Ben Simmons because he didn't deserve that All-NBA team to begin with. That was a dish on Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid that year put up 22 and 12 and didn't get invited to an All-NBA. Wow, Ben Simmons did. What is the true legacy of Ben Simmons? Ben Simmons has literally showed us why the NBA Media Awards is a fucking joke. You know, late last season, Daryl Morey was campaigning for John B. All NBA first team. Daryl, I joined that campaign with you. He was legitimately one of the top 5 players on the planet. But as we know, John B. was on the second team. Doesn't that show you that his awards hanging on a wall mean absolutely nothing? That they don't recognize that John B. is the top 5 player on the planet? That they can't even recognize that, and you think that his awards mean something? Ben Simmons' statistics are roughly in line with Lamar Odom. So we are literally talking about holding Lamar Odom, and to put the 2000 thing into perspective, we're holding Lamar Odom and we're saying to the Sixers, trade us out of Iverson. And even Billy King would be like, nah, no thanks, I'm not trading, multiple time All-Star, multiple time scoring champion, MVP for Lamar Odom. That's what we're doing here. We're expecting a Hall of Fame guard to come to us for Lamar Odom. There's no reason. Portland has no incentive. Oh, but the comparison isn't truly accurate because even though Lamar Odom has some diva-ish, Lamar Odom never really dished his teammates. He never really got himself kicked out of practices. He just wasn't, aggressive. Like I said, monkey see, monkey do. Both 6'10", 225, both you would think because of that size and ball handling could do things that most other people couldn't. But Lamar Odom just did not have that aggressiveness. But Lamar Odom, until his mental breakdown from being traded from the Lakers to the Mavericks, or it was to the Hornets, and then he really had to break down, then they had to trade him to the Mavericks. But until that breakdown, Lamar Odom, all things aside, was a pretty solid role player. He was a pretty willing guy to accept that role with Dwayne Wade and those young Miami Heat teams with Colin Butler, and then with Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum, and Kobe Bryant. Ben is so far away from Lamar Odom's maturity while having the same skill set is absolutely laughable. So I'm just saying right here in this segment that, look, Dale, Portland will never trade you Damian Lillard for Ben Simmons. If Damian Lillard says to go to Philadelphia, Portland is going to tell Philadelphia, leave out Ben Simmons to a third team. Lamar Odom with a shitty attitude with up to $40 billion toward the end of his deal, no thanks. Seriously, no thanks. A lot of people who are saying that Ben is this or Ben is that, etc., just have no framework for history. I compare you to the player who looks the same, played the same, but even he had a way better attitude and made way less money. So if you think about the situation, and you think you're getting Hall of Fame Damian Lillard, good luck, or you have to reroute him to a third team. Even if it's Washington. Hey, Washington, Bradley Beal is an all-star. He's really hit the prime of his career. Underrated. Again, media awards just are damaging. In this case, it's the reverse. Where Bradley Beal did not get the respect he deserved for what he's been able to produce on the court. But still, I think he made an all-star team a couple of times, 2 times. He averaged over 25 a game in the last 4 or 5 years. Kind of a mini James Harden, but he doesn't dominate the ball like Harden. I think you saw, that 60-point game. Bradley Beal is the best off-ball screen player in the NBA. 3-point range with Rip Hamilton-like skill. I would take Bradley Beal in a heartbeat. But guess what? Washington would not take Ben Simmons in a heartbeat. Ben Simmons is not as good as Russell Westbrook, is far more of a team cancer than Russell Westbrook. As a matter of fact, Ben Simmons is more of a cancer than Kyrie Irving. So, from Washington's perspective, it's sort of the same conversation. If Bradley Beal wants to go to Philadelphia, fine. Trade Ben Simmons somewhere else. this is not going to end with Ben Simmons being traded for the superstar directly. Neither Portland nor Washington want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. That's just the way it is. And literally, Neil Oshley already told Daryl Morey that in the C.J. McCollum trade. And that was before Ben Simmons had his tantrum today. You think Portland is any more inclined? Nah, they're not any more inclined than they were a week and a half ago. So what is this for me personally? You know, Seth Curry called it a distraction. Doc Rivers called it a distraction. Joel Embiid, oh my God, Joel Embiid was really done. You know, if he wasn't done after Ben Simmons unanimously trashed this guy, he was even more done after this. He's like, I don't care about that man. Let him do whatever he wants. And then he's like, oh, it's not my job to babysit this guy. Joel Embiid is the man. He's the MVP already. He's the MVP. Wrap it up. Because he inherited this sticky, shitty situation that Joshua Harris and David Bliss have thrown on him. Notice how Joel Embiid said multiple times now, oh, it's management. It's management. He knows. He's like, this is your mess. You clean it up. It's not my job to clean it up. And it is, Daryl. It's your job to clean this up. You know how you say December 15th, when more contracts, you know, the free agents you sign this summer, when they'll be available for trade. Okay, December 15th, we're waiting. We're waiting, Daryl. We're waiting. Because if you keep thinking that this is going to happen and it doesn't materialize, I hope you put the best interest of the team over your deluded hopes for a superstar. And honestly, I do personally still believe that it will come to a head at that point. If you go a month into the season and the Sixers win ball games, and we saw them go 2-2 in the preseason, we saw them play pretty competitive teams, we saw them play Kevin Durant and James Harden for 30 minutes. If this team plays at a level that is at or near, then at that point, even the Sixers management will have to be like, you know what? It's not worth it. It's not worth waiting for something that will never come. It's not worth keeping the distraction around. Let's move on. And see, a big thing is that the Sixers think that Ben was a huge part of this. And as I said earlier in the video, he's not a huge part of this. He was a part of the ride, but he did not build this. I'm going to quote Obama here. He didn't build it. He benefited from Joel Embiid building it, but he himself did not build it. Ben Simmons did not build this. Okay, Joshua Harris, he didn't build it. Joel Embiid built it. Without Embiid, there'd be nothing. So seriously, just trade this man already. It was one thing when he walked out of the huddle like a 4-year-old. But what he did now and what he's been doing for this whole process, get wrecked, get out of my city. You've never deserved to wear a Philadelphia uniform. Oh, and this really does put home. When you scout players and you hear locker room problems or half-ass effort on the court, those should be bigger red flags now due to the Ben Simmons saga. Now that you've seen what that is at the worst case scenario, look closer when a guy doesn't ball it in college, because that's Division 1, that's Division 2. That ain't even the G League, that's not the NBA. So big red flag, if a guy doesn't bring it, if he doesn't have that dog mentality, big red flag. I'm staying away from that, from the drafting process. Hey, who knows? Maybe other GMs want to take a shot at that, whatever. You know, trouble players can change. But unless it's the true best player available, and by true best player available, I mean he outproduced every other player in that slot at that point. Unless it's a true best player, unless I truly, earnestly believe that he's the best player available, I'm not picking up my 10-foot pole. I'm sorry. The locker room destruction, the ruining of a team, it ain't worth it. Only if you're T.O., only if you're AD, only if you're James Harden. If you're not that, you're not worth this. And Ben, you're not worth it. Sixers universe. Peace.